Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of Xploit. So what we're going to be doing today, or what I'm going to be doing today for now, is that I'm going to be building the Basalt farm. I believe Lee will be joining me a little bit after, maybe rather towards the end, we'll see. But yeah, that should be pretty cool, so we will be building the storage and the Basalt farm itself. So I say, let's get started with the time-lapse and I'll see you again after it's done. Okay, so the Basalt farm just got finished and I stocked it up with some shulker boxes. So we're about to see it run for the first time and I'm just gonna ask Lee if he's ready. I guess he added 2 more shulker boxes to each loader, so I guess we can turn it on now and we can see how it goes. Should be pretty good. The shooting system should launch right away while the farm fills up. Looking good so far. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. It is really loud though, so probably be a better idea to turn down my volume, but it looks like it's running as it should. Nice. Let's see if the flushing system works properly. If I toggle this, see if everything gets pushed out. Literally this stuff right here. Okay, this gets pushed out, perfect. And there should be some unrelated drops up there, such as some cobblestone and some concrete. Yeah, so I got that, that's good. Yeah, looks like the farm is running, that's pretty good. So I'm just gonna drop all of the rest basalt into the system that I picked up. And it looks pretty good, solid. Let's take a look up here if all of the top modules generate properly. Strangely, these top ones seem to not be doing anything, so I'll check what the problem is here. They do get powered. I found some problems already, but they're pretty minor and easily fixable. Notably back here there's some torches missing, so I'm just gonna fix it up real quick. Should be just a matter of adding this and this. And that should fix it. Let's take a look. Did I also miss them here? Nope, doesn't look like I did. So what wasn't happening is that some of these middle pistons in the back weren't pushing properly. So I'm just going to check if that's fixed. Ouch. Yeah, this is dropping my frames pretty hard. That should be working. Yeah, that's working out. Perfect. So as I said in my previous video, the main problem with this farm is that there is a bug in the game where moving blocks cause a memory leak. So when this farm continuously runs, it will keep eating more memory, which is not cleared. So it will eat so much memory that eventually the server shuts down. Oh well, at least that's what I think would happen, because that's what happened to my single player game. And yeah, that's of course not a good thing at all. But then again, we'll only be running it shortly. And I will also be linking the bug report in the description so that it gets eventually fixed. By the way, that affects anything that moves the block in any shape or form. Also for this shulker loader, there's always one buffer box in the system, meaning that there will always be one box left. And this is a full box of basalt, very nice. And it means that we have to fill up another one before this one gets pushed out. And same for the next one, so there's always one in the system. Also, just because it's funny, I'm going to name this with a ram eater, but it's kind of hard for me to get in there without sucking in all of the drops, so I guess I'm just gonna go for it. Ah, there we go. Looks like we already have 4 shulker boxes of basalt, which is very nice. Technically more, but like I said, they're all in the buffers, so yeah. Anyway, another project we've also been working on is a Nether Hub design. This one here is work in progress, but I do think it looks pretty good. Maybe the portal in the middle alone is just a bit boring, and there's the fog effect floor, we have the Xploit logo, and we have, is it 8? Yes, we have 8 gates per side, and so the plan would be to put a piston bolt at ground level, and above the piston bolts we would put an ice road. And on that same ice road you can also ride horses, so you would essentially have 3 options for travel. And yes, I know we could technically use just 1 piston bolt per side and encode it using signal strength. However, the current plan is not that, because it would not be that practical, considering that we are planning a 3 methods travel, which is the piston bolt, horse and boat on top, like I described. And if we encoded that, then boat travel would become a bit confusing, because you'd have to stop and look for signs and stuff. So I think it's better and simpler if we just have a single tunnel for each location. Besides, technically we can still encode a single tunnel into multiple locations, and yeah. By the way, that black concrete is just there because, well, we don't have anything there yet, and I just wanted it to look cool. But of course, once the tunnels will be built, it will be open all the way, and that will look pretty nice. Apart from that, this Nether Hub also has no roof. That means we can freely fly above here, and I'm also trying to think of a way to make some sort of horse elevator so that we can get the horses onto the roof, and that would allow us to travel to faraway locations while the piston bolt is still being built. For example, our slime farm location, which I believe is several hundred thousands of blocks away. In the overworld that is like only, I don't know, 18,000, 20,000 blocks away. It's still pretty far away. That's why we want the piston bolts in the long run, so you can AFK travel. But in the short run, I suppose we would have a horse. Since, you know, our horses are actually pretty fast since they're the speed horses. And that is a fairly good alternative that doesn't require any resources. It doesn't require any rockets like Elytra's would, doesn't require any ice, or it doesn't even require any iron and redstone like piston bolts would. You just travel and you're done with it. What's also missing in this hub design still is that we want a way to get up into the old area where we had most of our stuff. So this would be right here. For example, here we have the fortress farm tunnel, and over here we have more tunnels, etc. But it would be nice to be able to access this, although of course in the long run we would just have piston bolts leading everywhere. But the plan is that in these little gaps, let me see if I can find a way through. The gap I passed through before, where is it? Ah, there it is. So my idea was that in these gaps we could have some piston based elevators. That would be sort of translocation, I believe. Actually, I have a version of that in my testing world, so let's check that out. So I'm talking about this design right here. I'm sure this is a very basic design that has been done a million times over, but the basic idea is just that you push a piston facing up into the player's head, and then it translocates the player up, and you repeat that process. It works with other entities too, so we can just do it with a zombie pigman, and as you can see, they just get transported up. The good thing about this is that it's very hard to get out. I've been trying this entire ride to get out and it didn't work. Let's try that again when I reach the bottom. Sorry, little zombie pigman. I can try to fly or to sneak or to move or whatever. I just can't get out. Okay, now I did it, I guess. But basically the point is that when you stand still, there's really no way you'll glitch out or anything. And with it being such a simple mechanic, I don't think it would break too easily, unlike the previous plan we had with elevators in the end, which was bubble tiles. But bubble tiles are unfortunately not placeable anymore, so that's unfortunate, and I guess we'll have to use that. Besides, that solution is way cooler in my opinion. We could also use powder snow based translocation elevators, but honestly I prefer this one back here. It is kind of cooler in my opinion. I also have some more progress to show on the other project of ours, which is the moss farm. So what we added is that we added first of all different modes. We have a selector panel over here. And as you can see, there's a myriad of bone meal farms, so mini crop farms, and they can all be powered by this moss farm, which will produce bone meal of course. So the idea is that we either have this bone meal mode, so this bone meal mode will fill up these shulker boxes with bone meal. Then there is the moss mode. The moss mode will give us moss carpets, azalea, and wait, what is it called again? Flowering azalea, right. So moss blocks, moss carpet, azalea, and flowering azalea drops, and they will all be picked up here. It is not the max rates that we could get for these drops. I believe when you combine all of these drops together, it would be around 300 to 320,000 per hour for this farm. But since we are only filtering a select amount, which is like, what is it, 8? That's 8 hoppers and 9,000 per hopper. Yeah, that doesn't even come close to the 320,000 per hour. And we don't really need that many of the moss drops. It's just so that we have a supply should we need some, mainly for building purposes. Then there's all the other modes, and how the other modes work is that we basically have a really long red coder. Well, we already have these 2 red coder modules for the moss mode and the bone meal mode. But this red coder will basically unlock only certain hoppers over here on the micro crop farms and allow bone meal into only the one that we want. And we don't really have a toggle switch for any of them. They just automatically start once they start receiving bone meal. except for this. Well, this is not really a toggle switch, this is just to open the door so that we can manually replace the 2 tall flour. Because this farm produces a profit of 13,900 bone meal per hour, however, the output for the bone meal for the micro crop farms is only 9,000 per hour. When you are in the crop modes, you will still get bone meal profit right now. And I could, of course, have made it faster so that some of these farms work way faster. There are way faster methods for all of them, but for simplicity's sake, I just decided to stick to the standard 9,000 per hour 1x hopper speed for each of the farms. Well, that's a lot of talk about it. Let's actually demonstrate it. So let's stay on the bone meal mode first. Once I turn this farm on, what will happen is that this piston will activate, and that will change the scaffolding, which sends a signal all the way up that the observer detects and sends into this T flip-flop. This T flip-flop will turn off and turn on the etho hopper clock, and the hopper clock controls this entire farm. I already explained the concept in the last episode, but what will happen is that the moss block in the middle gets bone mealed from underneath, and then more stone gets pushed in, and then water gets dispensed on top. And what then happens is that the drops get flushed over here. Because there's a stone block normally, a sticky piston pulls it away, it all falls to the bottom, and then it gets pushed back in, so that once again the stone can be pushed in to be replacing the moss. And when we go all the way down here, you can see that all of the drops are coming out of the green tubes. They're passing by. If it was moss mode, then these hoppers would be unlocked, but in the bone meal mode what happens is that all of the moss drops get fed into these composters. Right now there's 36 different composters. I think technically it works with 35 composters, but 36 is safer. And so what happens then is that when all the moss drops get composted, they get sent up into this bubble column right here, where they will be fed to the hoppers that actually self-sustain the moss farm. As the bone meal travels down, it will eventually end up falling out here. Right now the farm is still warming up, and as you can see there's some bone meal going down already, but it will never run out. It will always still self-sustaining. So what will eventually happen is that all of the bone meal will have these hoppers completely full, and what happens then is that the bone meal passes over here, fills up this hopper and this buffer hopper. This is for the crop farms, but most importantly fills up these shulker boxes with bone meal. Now you just need to wait for this last hopper down here to be filled up completely, and then the farm will have warmed up all the way to have reached the self-sustaining mode. So okay, now it is fully self-sustaining and producing profit. So all of the profit bone meal passes over here as I described. Now let's come back to the selector panel and take a look at the other modes. When we go on the moss mode, all of these hoppers will unlock, and then all of the hoppers will pick up the items, filter them, and as you can see, the moss chests here fill up. And we get all of the drops, moss carpets, the moss blocks, the azalea, and the flowering azalea. Once I switch over from the moss modes to any of the crop farm modes, what it will do is it will essentially switch back to the bone meal mode, but with one key difference. The difference is that this hopper here will unlock and will start sending bone meal into the system. And due to the single strength encoded thing, which is usually referred to as a red coder, but it's kind of spaced out here, this hopper right here will unlock, but all the previous hoppers are still locked. And the farm will automatically detect all of the bone meal coming in, and it will start producing bamboo. Same thing if I select the sugarcane, we can go very quickly. As you can see, this one locked and this one unlocked, so all of the bone meal will pass by and will start fueling the next farm. So as you can see, we are getting sugarcane here. I'm not going to show each different micro crop farm running, but I do want to show the cocoa bean mode, because I had to come up with a cocoa bean farm, and I found that kind of interesting. So what happens is that this jungle log gets pushed down, and then there's bone meal dispensed twice. So that's actually quite interesting in my opinion, and I found it kind of fun to design. It was definitely the most fun to design out of all of these farms. I'm going to switch back to bone meal mode, and unfortunately for this farm, because it auto detects when there's bone meal and won't stop unless it's empty, you either have to finish it by just, you know, keeping the right click on there, or you can take all of the bone meal out, and then the farm will stop. The other ones are pretty simple. The kelp one is just a kelp bone meal farm. The kelp will be bone mealed, and then the dispenser on the top removes the water, making it break, it will drop, and all lands down there. The twisting and weeping vines are very similar to the sugarcane and bamboo farms. You just break it and it drops. Then there's the sweetberry and the glowberry farms, and those work a bit differently. You just basically have to hold right click all the time, and it will keep dispensing you bone meal onto the plants, and it will all be collected down here for both of those farms. That more or less explains the entire setup we have here for the moss farm slash bone meal micro farm hub, and I think it is pretty cool. We are not adding the bigger bone meal farms because they would consume way more than 9,000 bone meal per hour, so those farms will just be next to this big farm but not directly hooked up. Such farms include a flower farm, for example, not the 2 tall but the 1 tall flower farms because they produce way more dye and they're way more efficient. The 2 tall flower farm only exists if we want the actual flowers themselves, you know, for building purposes or something. And then we would have a sea pickle farm, a nether root farm, nether fungus farm, tons of stuff that we can build but don't necessarily need to build right away, and farms that are definitely not micro farms. And most importantly, with the bone meal we get from this farm, we can fuel the tree farm, which is great. So as you can imagine, I am pretty excited to build this farm, but that will have to wait for the next exploit episode. So I want to thank you for watching this episode of Exploit, and well, of course, I hope you enjoyed it. And if you enjoyed it, then well, maybe consider subscribing, because I have tons more content like this on my channel, and I'm sure that you will enjoy it. Also, make sure to join my Discord server, link in the description, and I think you will enjoy that as well. With that being said, as always, thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you around. Bye!